So make sure you change that one color out. I'm going to be toning the whole paper today, so it's going to be somewhat wet when I do this, so that I'm not going to have it soaking wet, but it's going to be damp so that I can make the watercolor move quite rapidly. So it's something that we're going to explore all the light and dark patterns. That's why I don't have a drawing on the paper. So this is kind of fun. What you come up with could be different naturally from what is in the photograph and different than what I'm painting. But let the watercolor flow. Don't try to coerce it into a corral. Just let it go everywhere it wants to. And nature is very forgiving to begin with, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. So we're going to get started here. And I'm going to spray the paper lightly, not soaking, but on the light side. I got to put out my colors first. So we're using ultramarine, burnt sienna, yellow medium, and brown madder. This is kind of a neat photograph because it shows a lot of aerial perspective. In other words, the darks getting lighter as they go back and the lights get darker. And it gets a little bit cooler in the background, even though the sun is really blaring on this thing, but it still works fairly well. And some brown matter. Spent about a half hour cleaning out my tray last night. It was getting a little muddy looking. Okay, so I'm going to spray the paper just a little bit. I'm just spritzing. I'm not making it drenched in water, just enough to make the watercolor flow. I'm going to take my bigger cat tongue brush here, and I'm going to grab the yellow, quite a bit of pigment, and I'm going to grab the brown madder, which makes a real nice orange, earthy orange. And I'm going to use a lot of water in this to start with, even though we have water. And I'm going to paint in different directions. I'm going to add a little bit more brown matter to this. I'm not worried about that sunburst that's up here in the corner. We can remove that if necessary. Usually they're not something you want to put in most of the time. When I get rid of all the white spots. And I'm going to add a little bit more brown matter to this and a touch of the burnt sienna. And I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to put that tree line way in the back. It's probably the one thing I'm going to put in at this point. So it remains very soft back there. We'll probably have to revisit that, but I'm not overly concerned about it. Oh, bird just flew by. And then I'm going to take the yellow pretty much by itself, and I'm going to put that right through here. Now, as I come forward, I'm going to be using a little bit more of the brown matter on the ground. Down here, we could leave little specks of white. Now, I'm going to take the brown matter with the burnt sienna, fair amount, a little bit of ultramarine blue to even gray it into the shadow a little bit more. And a little bit more. There we go. And in this one, I want a fair amount of variety of color in here. So I'm adding odds and ends in here with yellows and what have you. And I'm going to take this feeling of this road going back in here somewhat just to give the idea of where it's at. And I'm going to take the ultramarine blue over here in the corner with the brown matter, and you get a nice violet looking. But when you put it down next to what I put down previously, it doesn't look violet. It's color relationship, actually. Now, this is the point where we take out the toothbrush. Well, after I take and I put down the tree line again, because we're still wet enough. Going to add a little bit more yellow to that and some brown matter. And I'm going to add a little bit more in on the tree line back here. And again, I'm going to enforce the road. I'm going to bring that road right over through here. Now, while it's still wet, this is where I'm going to take the toothbrush and I'm going to mix up the yellow and the brown matter. And grabbing a little bit of this darker with the burnt sienna in it. This is where you have kind of a free form. And I'm going to add this mass in here, a little bit more brown matter. And this will give you the effect of what's going to go on in this area. While it's still wet, everything will remain nice and soft. I want a little bit more brown matter in it, so we get a little bit more darker orange. I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna or ultramarine blue to it, down towards the bottom here. So I can fuse this in with this down here a little bit better. And I'm going to bring that same color across like so. And then I'm going to take the yellow. It has quite a bit of water. So this is somewhat dry in here. So we're okay with that so far. And grab a little bit of some of the darker stuff. And I'm being a little bit more intermittent over on this side than I was on this side. And right off over in here, it's going to be a little bit darker. Last winter, I did a whole painting with, almost a whole painting with the toothbrush. And it was a kind of a spring scene. I'm going to grab some of this darker, and I'm going to bring that into here. It's still wet enough to where I could go ahead and use, I got a little bit darker. It's a basically point and shoot. So I know some of you haven't been comfortable with the toothbrush yet, but this can be a little bit more fun because you can spray it just about anywhere and you can get away with it. Okay. And last but not least, I'm going to grab a little paper towel, wet it, And I'm going to pick up just a little bit down in here at the horizon line to where it gets a little bit lighter. And I'm going to kind of poke through here to pull out some of that light that's shooting through. And the same thing on the other side. Some of it's going to be covered up later, but that's all right. So that gives you an idea how quickly it can be put in and not worry about exactly what you're getting because it's going to move around a little bit anyways. So I started off with a lot of yellow back here, a little bit of the brown matter, and I was different combinations all the way down till I got to here. I started adding a little bit of burnt sienna. This I add a lot of burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue so that we have this established in shadow. So whatever it comes out to be, you'll work with it. And it may shift on you a little bit, not to worry. And I have to wait for this to dry a little bit to take a picture. But I know I'll have to use the hair dryer on it. But all you're doing is you're looking at the patterns of things and make sure that this area right in here doesn't get too wide. Make it narrower so that it will fall back. The foreground has more heaviness in it than the midground as far as space. But keep it simple. Don't overbrush it. Let the watercolor flow where it wants to. The only part I took up was in that middle area a little bit and off to the right. Still have to wait for it to use the hairdryer. Got to put it up here.
Take a picture.
I will. I had to leave it dry a little bit. You can see here along the front on how that the pigments are mingling with one another. The ultramarine blue has a tendency to be more granulated and falls to the bottom where the other colors will rise. It's a little bit heavier. Some colors will granulate more than others. And I know you won't be able to hold it up since it's so wet. Just tell me when you're done and I'll check it before you start again. I don't want it falling off the paper.
Well, this is this is without the toothbrush. So
Okay. Yeah, good so far. All right. Boy, the snow's coming down crazy up here. And we had a nice week of 40-degree weather, 35. A lot of the snow melted. Now it's coming back. It's teasing us. Behave.
She's telling you no.
She's mad this morning. Your sound's coming through. Your sound is coming. Poppy? Who ate your breakfast? Remember, don't overwork it. Let it flow everywhere. I'm seeing a lot of brushwork going on. Just raise your hand when you're done, because I know it's going to be too wet to show. Okay. That's where you put your brush down, Judy.
It is. Okay, here we go.
Okay. All right, that's good. Okay, good. How you doing, Janet?
Did you see me talking to myself? Oh, I didn't go over the tree line yet.
No, you're fine. That's good.
So don't go over the tree line again.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Okie. So stop.
So stop, yes. Please. All right, that's good. For be a little bit darker, but we're gonna darken it anyway, so just leave it alone.
Okay.
We've got something to work with. If it's too wet to tilt up, you can leave it on the board, but go ahead if you can.
See if I can show you mine. My purpley color got a little more brown.
That's fine. Don't worry about that. Nope, that's good. Yeah, because actually I'm seeing the camera will always show something different or the computer, but there's some purple in here and so forth that I'm getting from the brown matter and the blue, which is fine. Before we start again, I do want to revisit this again so that you can see. I actually worked on this probably another 15 minutes after Marilee sent it off to you. In these areas here, up in here, there, down in here, I used opaque watercolor. In other words, I added a little bit of white to the color to make it pop a little bit more. And then I added a little bit of movement into the stream. I don't know whether that was there or not, but you can see it's quite different from the photograph. So you don't have to worry too much about what the photograph has in detail because the painting is going to tell you certain things that it needs. And I used a little bit more yellow up in here than what was there, but I allow that to trail through here, but it's muted as it came over compared to what's up here and down here. But you can see what I did with it after the fact. Okay. Getting back to business on this. Now, the background line of trees back here, they don't need to be too defined, but I want to define them a little bit in this area here before we go any further. I mean, just a very little bit. So I'm going to take the yellow and the brown matter and a little bit of the burnt sienna, which will help gray it. There we go. And I'm going to use a lot of water with this. But I just want to have it defined just a little bit more. Because it gets off into the trees here, into these trees here, and it's not even noticeable as far as that goes. But it's just going to be a little bit more pronounced than what the photograph is telling us. The sky is a little bit brighter than what's in the photograph. I'm not worried about that because it's going to hold together anyways. Now, I'm going to take the brown matter and the yellow here again, and a little bit of the burnt sienna. And I'm going to first start on the right-hand side, and I'm going to dry brush in some of the things here. So that the leaves become more defined. I'm going to add a little bit more brown matter. And I'm leaving the openness of these holes here, which are very important. And as I get back more towards the right-hand side, I'm going to add a little bit of the ultramarine blue to this and a little bit more brown matter. And I'm going to bring in some of that darker dark in here. And up in the corners, I'm making sure that they are blocked in and not that light coming through, because it would be a little bit too bothersome to the eye. And I made a little bit darker version, so as we go down, it's getting darker. And I'm going to add a little bit more red to this and a little bit more yellow, not much, too much. There we go. Now I'm going to leave an open spot there. And as we come down into this area here, we have a little bit more of a solid thing going on. Before we get into the violets, and this is, I'm going to block this off here so your eye doesn't go out. So now I'm going to take the brush, clean it out, and I'm going to grab the brown matter and the ultramarine blue and a little bit of the burnt sienna, but not too much. And then I'm going to come in down here where it's darker. And this, down in areas like this, you want to make your dark areas semi-interesting, but never really interesting. So I added more blue to this. And I'm going to allow some of the light down in here to show through. And then I'm going to take the toothbrush and I'm going to take some of this yellow orange here and I'm going to spritz it here in the middle. Maybe a little bit more yellow. There we go. And this will dissipate quite a bit. And I want to bring this out a little bit more. Dry it off on the brush, on a paper towel. So it's a matter of trying to imitate the light and dark pattern that you're seeing. And I'm adding more yellow in here, like so. And then I'm going to go back to the very dark ultramarine blue and the brown matter. It has burnt sienna in it already, so I'm not overly concerned about it. And I don't want to cover the whole thing solid. I want that first wash to come through a little bit here and there. Now the toothbrush comes into play a lot in these subtleties that are down in here, that you get a little bit of that softness back in here. And I'm going to take a little bit of the brown matter by itself, and I'm going to spritz it up in here too. So we get a little bit more red up in here in this area. And I'm going to take this across to right here, and I'll just leave this alone. I don't want to finish off the whole thing, but And I'm not going as dark over here, mainly because we can add to it later on. And I want to put this one streak of the road in here. I'm going to bring it across to here and use some of the brown matter with a little bit of the yellow and kind of tease it up into here and not put the trees in yet. So I'm going to take the toothbrush and I'm going to tease that in. So I have a kind of an ending spot for this. And I'm going to take this little piece of wet paper towel that I have, and I'm going to pull out just a little bit of texture here and there, like so. And a little bit back in here. And that's where I'm going to end this part of it. And I'll come back over on this side on the next phase because it's lighter, softer, a little bit airier. So it's different combinations of the yellow, the brown matter. As I go down, I'm adding ultramarine blue to this, a little bit of burnt sienna to gray it. And I added a lot of ultramarine blue through here and across. And then I just sort of phased it up in there with some yellow orange. And I'll wait till this dries before I take a picture. And I'll probably add some more foliage out in here, but I don't want to do it right away. It's a very warm painting in temperature. Let me see if I can tilt this up a little bit. So you're not getting all that glare. But still allow the colors to mingle together. Don't worry about trying to control it.
Gail, would you go over the toothbrush part again, please?
What I did down in here, Judy, is I added the yellow with a little bit of the brown matter with it in here while this was wet. And then I just started using the brush. I did add a little bit of, I think I added a little bit of toothbrush up in here, but not too much. And then as I came across with that brown matter and the ultramarine blue with a little bit of burnt sienna in it, I added the toothbrush here with that muted yellow orange in here just to sort of end that a little bit more. So it's not competing with the dark over here. I'm making it lighter over there.
Okay.
But this is a very, very colorful, warm painting. Don't hold back on the color because remember, it dries lighter. And if you're not using enough color, you have to go over it again, and then you might end up overhandling it, which was one of my biggest problems as a student. Trying to understand how it dries. Try to keep it simple. Don't overwork it. I'm going to get some clean water. I'll be right back. Any questions at all?
Gail, do I need to do anything different?
Yeah, try to soften this up in here with a little bit of water and color so that the transition from here to here is a little bit softer. That's it.
Okay.
We're trying to keep everything fairly soft almost to the very end and edges, except for the tree foliage on the right-hand side. The one on the left-hand side will be a little bit softer, so again, it doesn't compete with the right-hand side.
Can I check?
Remember, variety is the spice of the artist life. All right, that's good, Catherine. That's what you want.
Okay.
You could bring this out, this right here. You can bring it out this way a little bit more with dry
Okay.
brushing. Minor thing. And then stop. Anybody else? What are you laughing for, Janet? All right, that's good. Stop. Don't do anything with it. What's on the back? All right. How you doing, Judy? All right. I wouldn't do too much more.
Okay.
Have I gotten everybody? Except, did I get yours, Catherine? I forgot. Okay. Laura, did I get yours? Okay. I'm going to start again as soon as Janet arrives back in her room. Okay. We're going to start again, Janet. All right. All right. The left-hand side of this is going to be a little bit lighter, but it's going to be a tad less color. I'm going to use the Chinese brush again, and I'm going to grab the yellow and a little bit of the burnt sienna and a touch of the brown matter and a touch of the ultramarine blue. And I'm going to start dry brushing near the edge first on the left-hand side. It's going to be filled in just a little bit more over here than it was over here. Going to add a little bit more brown matter to this. And I'm going to drag this out quite a ways from what the photograph is telling me. And then I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to that and a little bit more brown matter. And I'm just really barely touching the paper when I'm putting this on. Much more delicate in handling. And as I go up, I'm going to add more yellow to it. And I'll keep my toothbrush handy for softening edges. But there's going to be a lot more open area over here than there was over on the right-hand side. A little bit more burnt sienna and brown matter and a touch of the blue. And what I'm trying to do is make an interesting pattern. When I'm doing this, I have to be conscious of things that are a little bit evenly spaced. So I'm trying to pay some attention to that so that there's a variety of open spaces as it goes up and around. Now, we're not going to put the sun shining through here, so I'm kind of omitting that, but I am going to add a little bit more yellow to this. Then I'm going to take the toothbrush with the same color, spritz a little bit in there, and then manipulate it with the brush a little bit. But I still want to come down and darken in the bottom. So I'm going to take start over again. Don't want any green showing up in there. So I'm taking the ultramarine blue and the yellow and the brown matter, and off to the side, I'm going to create a little bit of darkness, wipe off the brush a little bit. Going to darken it up differently than what's in the photograph. And I'm being conscious of what's happening down here up against the darkness here. We have a light span that goes through there, which I'm not worried about. So I'm adding a little bit more yellow. Take some burnt sienna, add that to it. And we get kind of a muted orange here to a certain extent. And I want to softly bring out some of these other branches that come out. And then I'm going to go off to the other side. And I need to add in some more darkness up in here. I want to bring this out a little bit more. These are things that you can readjust as you move through the painting on what needs to be done. I'm going to take the toothbrush and add a little bit of color like that. And then I'm going to take a little bit off over here. I'm looking at this edge here as opposed to this edge here. So we don't have the same shapes going on. And I'm adding some other darks in here right now so that we have a little bit of variety of value up in here, but not too much. And I still want to bring out another branch here on the right-hand side. And have it overlap the background a little bit more. A little bit more brown matter up in here. So it's building it up to its final shapes. I want to bring in a little bit more darkness back on this side. So a combination of the brown matter and the little bit of the yellow. To make this quite a bit darker. With the light still showing through here and there. Then we'll worry about the tree trunks and the rest of it later. So I'm adding a little bit of water just to soften that out. And I'm going to take a little bit of blue by itself and add it in here also. The object is to get the sides unbalanced in value so that they're not too equal. Now I'm going to come down in here very quickly again with ultramarine blue and brown matter. So you get a little bit more purpley, a little bit darker. Grab a little bit of this and spritz it up in here. Not trying to cover everything again, just trying to add to it. And kind of soften into this little light patch there. Changing the color a little bit, adding a little bit more warmth to it as it goes from right to left. Add a hit of red color in there, some of the brown matter. And once you have it in there, you can manipulate the color just a little bit. I'm going to pick up this overspray out here a little bit. I can adjust that later. And then just softly feed some of this color up here in the bottom so there's not an abrupt change too much. I got to get rid of too many speckles out here. And I have a little bit of light that runs right through here. So I'm just taking a wet brush. If it's too much, I can always add back in, which I think I need to add a little bit in there. Excuse me. And the last thing that I want to do is take straight yellow, and I want to add just a little bit in here. I'm going to take my brush and maneuver a little bit and some more over here. Then take the brush damp and just kind of allow it to soften that up a little bit. And the last thing is I'm going to add a little bit of darkness up in here. So it's falling underneath the bunches of leaves here that it's a little bit darker. And then I think I'm going to darken this up. And then take a damp brush and manipulate it to be softer. Okay. So I darkened this up. I brought it out a little bit more with some of the red oranges. And then I created a very dark blue and brown matter through here on top, allowing things still to show through. And as I came across, I added more brown matter, a little bit of burnt sienna, and I came across through here and I darkened this up a little bit. But and I add a little bit more yellow back here, tried to lift out, which I probably shouldn't have. But that's where we're going to stay at this particular point. So let me get a picture of this and then I'll raise it up. And we'll leave that dry. So it's got quite a bit of color in this. I used the color a little bit heavier to get those contrast of temperature and values going on in there. And you can see that there's a lot of little areas in here, I'll bring it up closer to the camera, that are still showing through on the original washes. Not a lot, but they're still there. I don't want to cover everything. But I wanted this to close in here softly. Be right back. And if you notice, mine does not look as far as, doesn't look like the photograph. So I molded it to the way I wanted it. So you don't have to follow the photograph that much, except for values.
Dale?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. I'm looking at your spaces. If you could bring out some finer handlings here and there out here, just to sort of reach a little bit further.
Okay, on
Like-
both sides?
Um, Light and lacy over here, a little bit heavier over here.
Okay.
Minor thing. How the kids doing, Catherine? Okay.
Although he was excited to make a quick appearance to see what I was doing. He's very curious about this.
Always, yes. They could be sick as dogs and they'll still want to see what you're doing.
Yeah, they're like, what? There's a lot of stuff on the table, Mom. Like, yep.
Sorry about that. I had to leave. But I'm back.
You were gone? No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry about that. We're having some issues going on with our house.
Okay.
So just finding out what's happening, and I had to report on some things.
I understand that. How we all doing? Don't shake your head no, Janet. Well, that's good, Laura.
Thank
So-
you. I feel like it's getting really messy.
No, it's not messy. It's
Okay.
fine.
All right.
It's supposed to be loose and carefree, more or less. Not uptight and too tight.
As I say, loose and carefree, it's hard for me.
Well, it's a different approach to a watercolor.
Yeah.
And when I started off oil painting, and you didn't have a lot of drawing when you're doing oil painting.
Hmm.
You know, you're doing masses of darks and lights, and the only thing that's really different about oils, the main thing is that you're working from dark to light and not light to dark. And the other thing is that you're putting, you can put lights on top of your darks, where we do that in watercolor, but it has to be with white gouache with the color. But other than that, you weren't drawing on the paper, you were blocking it in with all the light and dark masses. And most of the time, you were toning the canvas and working on a toned canvas and working up to get rid of the white of the canvas itself. Pretty much like watercolor to a certain extent. Is Poppy in there with you?
Uh-huh.
Anybody else have something to show me? Janet? Come on, don't be afraid. That's nice. What are you worried about, young lady?
Not worried. I'm glad that I caught up, I guess.
Yeah, you are. How you doing, Judy?
I think I'm about there.
Oh, that's coming out nice. Good. All right.
Okay.
And Catherine, how are you doing?
I think I might be a little muddy, but show you where.
No, it's not muddy at all.
Okay.
You could add a little bit more orange, yellow orange over here,
Okay.
but not much. I'll give you a minute to put it in. Should be easy. Go. Muddy is when you can't tell what color it is. I can tell what color it is. But don't play with it too much. That includes you young ladies that you showed me already. Don't play with the watercolor.
Talking to me?
Oh, everybody in general. Sometimes Janet can be the biggest offender.
Janet.
Yeah.
I am innocent today.
Uh-huh. Remember, I've watched you for the last few years. I'm going to get started again, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. There's a couple of things I need to do before I put in tree trunks and branches and such. And one of them is lifting some of the color with the toothbrush. And I'm going to start over here just a little bit. On darker colors, the lifting becomes a little bit easier. Just to break up that dark area just a little bit. And it's subtle. It's not real light in those areas. So it's just a matter of water with the toothbrush. And that brings a little bit of that light into the lower part of the painting here that's in shadow. I'm going to bring in a little bit more off on the right hand or the left hand side than the right. And a little bit down the middle of the road here. Just enough. Now I want to adjust the path in here just a little bit. So I'm going to pull out a little bit of light here and there on it, kind of give it a little bit more tailoring. And then kind of drag it into the darkness just a little bit. Now, the other thing I want to do before I add the trunks is I want to add a little bit of darkness up in this area here on the left-hand side. So taking the brown matter and the yellow with a little bit of the burnt sienna and a touch of the blue. And again, I'm not over mixing here, but I want to bring in some more darkness in here. Still not dark enough. And I'm creating a dark that's really not there. But it's a matter of balancing off the painting, not the photograph. And I'm going to take a little bit of the ultramarine blue on the brush so I don't have to touch the painting too much. And I'm going to add in just a little bit of dark down here at the bottom where it's receiving a little bit less light. And it'll help balance off some of that warmer color that's in here.
What colors are you using, Dale?
I used a little bit of the ultramarine blue, the brown matter, and a little bit of the yellow, and I added blue to that. Then I took just the blue and I sprayed it in there. And I want to add a little bit more blue with the brush here, just in certain areas that will kind of complement all the warm colors. And kind of get rid of that little light down here in the corner. It's a minor thing, but small things need to be adjusted at this point before carrying on. I'm taking a little bit of that same color and adding it up into the tree a little bit, just so it's not too light over here, because this has got some heavy body to it over there. It's a matter of balancing it off a slight bit. Okay, leaving that dry, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add in the trunks of the trees. Now, looking at all the trees that are in the photograph up there, some of these things are balanced off equally, look like they were planted. Other things don't need to be put in. So I'm going to start off what I feel is the darkest, heaviest tree, which starts over here in the photograph. I'm going to move it in. So I'm going to take the ultramarine blue and the brown matter, like so, and get kind of a brownish red. And I'm going to move that into here. And I'm going to kind of weave it in and out of the tree, not showing the whole. And I'll be using the Chinese brush and the 6 round. And this will start to make more sense of the tree mass. Not putting any branches in at this point. Every once in a while, I'll add more color, get a little bit darker, a little bit cooler. As I go out towards the light, I'll add a little bit more burnt sienna to it. And again, trying to compensate for the thickness of the trunk compared to the other ones. And then I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take the burnt sienna with a little bit of the yellow so that some of these trees will fall back and not be so heavy. It needs a little bit more. So I have to be kind of careful of how much of the trees I'm adding. I want to bring this one down a little bit further and then kind of so it's closer to us. Doing it this way, you're kind of creeping up on it. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this color and this color, and on the other side, I'm going to make them a little bit lighter, and I'll kind of get them put in a little bit darker as I move along. So I'm going to have a tree in here. These are a little bit warmer. They're lighter in value. And I'll pick up a little bit of dark here as it goes down. But I don't want to commit myself too far on some of these. This one I'm going to bring down a little bit further. And I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to them as they go out towards the lighter area because they're going to be picking up more light. As they go into the shadow, I'll make them a little bit darker. Now I'm going to go to my smallest brush, my rigger, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of both colors, and I'm going to start to feed in some of the branches that are popping out here and there so that they're supporting some of the finer foliage that comes out of the woods here. And I'll repeat the same thing on the other side also. And bring in some smaller saplings here and there. and that starts to fill it in just a little bit better and allow things to overlap a little bit more. Now, as the tree branches go down, they start to get more horizontal. As they go up more on an angle because of the growth of the tree. And this is where you get into some softer, finer handlings of things. And you're taking and looking at before you're putting down the brushwork. But the simpler you handle something like this, the nicer it's going to be, actually. Now we have, which I didn't put in the drawing, we have a fence that goes along through here, which I think is kind of important for this particular painting. So I'm going to start with the fence. I can always darken them in. I just want to put them where I feel that they should be. And I'm making them not so equal looking as far as spacing goes. So they kind of fade off. Then I'll darken up the ones that are closest to us. Add a little bit of description in on the ruts of the road here. And then take the toothbrush with some yellow and some of the brown matter, fairly thick. And I want to add in, whoops, a little bit of light here in the woods. It's leaking all over the place. There we go. Get a little bit more red in there. This will help break up this dark area just a little bit more. Not a whole lot though, because otherwise it's going to get too busy. and a little bit of water up in here just to pull out a few lights. It's not going to come out a whole lot, but it will pop out a little bit. Basically, it's all subtleties at this part. And I'm going to take a little bit by brush, and I'm going to add in just a little bit of dry brushing up in here. Nothing too much over there because I don't want to draw attention too much over there. And the very last part, this is just an add-on to what we've been doing, is right over here. I'm going to take a clean brush and I'm going to put a small building back here by putting down just water on the paper. Take a little bit of the red. And it's very subtle. I don't want that building popping out too much. And then take a little bit of darkness around it to make it pop out just a little bit more. And then take a damp brush and kind of manipulate that value around it. It gives something for the eye to go to in the background that's very, very subtle. And then what I'm going to do is take a little bit of yellow over here just to bring some of that color across. A little bit of yellow hitting here. Then take the brush and kind of manipulate it just a little bit. And just let it stay there just a little bit long and then tap up some of it. And let's see what it looks like without the tape on. Because there's always something you can do, but it's a point where you need to stand away from the painting and look at it from a distance for a while and decide, do I need to do anything else? Or do I want to keep its simplicity as it is and not get into any detail? Which usually that's one of the problems I have, is wanting to go back into it sometimes when I don't need to. So I have to really study it for a while. But you can see what can be done without a drawing by following the light and dark patterns in it. This has been simplified quite a bit in here. In the photograph, it's quite dark. It's a larger dark down here than what I put, but I didn't want that real heaviness and large area to show up too much. But this is just kind of allow things to fall off. The building in the back there is so subtle you almost don't notice it. just something for your eye to go back and rest on just a little bit. But you can pull it up with your small brush just with water and paper towel. And if I do anything extra to this, it's probably going to be a little bit in the foreground, but not too much. Got you, Janet.
That came out nice.
Yeah, I got all the numbers covered.
Good job. All right, I gotta go. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Have a great week.
Bye, Janet.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
You too.
Thank you.
Everybody just froze up. And it's not that cold out.
Is it?
Yeah, everybody froze. Janet's in the middle of a wave. Everybody else is smiling. There we go. Now we're moving. Our internet connection is a little unstable for some strange reason.
That's the snow.
It's underground.
It gets frozen. It's the snow fairies.
Throw this away. I'll be right back.
Hey, Dale, I'm going to show you what I've got. And then I
Okay.
got to go.
Well, that's coming along nice.
What do I need?
You need to lighten the background back here, and you can make it a little bit thicker.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit too dark back there. It's not receding fast enough.
Oh, okay.
But the rest of it looks pretty good.
What would make it recede then? What should I put on there?
What would make it what?
Recede.
Lighten it up a little bit and then see what it looks like, because mine has a little bit of the burnt sienna in it back here.
Yeah.
You have burnt sienna back there, but it's a little bit too dark. If you lighten it up and leave it dry, see if it recedes. You may not have to do anything to it.
Okay.
If you have to, add a little bit of a yellow wash across it.
Oh, okay.
Only if you have to.
Okay.
But we were showing, I think, minimal form in the shadow area, which is usually what happens. Usually in dark areas, it's semi-interesting, but never interesting. So I'm always trying to push that idea, because otherwise you make that interesting, it's going to fight with what's in the light, where you see more form in the light than you do the shadow. You see about 2/3 less form in the shadow if you're going to give it a number.
Yeah, I'll have to finish this up on the with the recording, but I started putting in some of the trees. And
That's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. If you could you have a little bit of a heavier bump down through here.
Mhm.
If you could bring that up just a half of an inch. Yeah,
Like bring this up.
right in here.
Okay.
You got it a little bit too low. Bring it up just a little bit. It's a minor thing, but the
Okay.
rest is looking very good.
Okay. Cool. All right. Thank you. Bye,
Have a good
everyone.
week.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
How you doing, Catherine?
I'm gonna have to finish up with the video too and leave in a second, but can I show you where I'm at and what you would?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Definitely. That's coming along quite nice. Quite nice. Yeah. Good. You can add spray a little bit of water in the foreground here, lift, and add a little bit of texture and so forth, so that it's not a heavy zone, so to
Okay.
speak. But the rest
Yeah, I'm still kind of learning the water to paint ratio more because my tendency is to layer on very thick.
I lay it on thicker than some watercolors and thinner than others. I'm more towards the thicker part, but I do use a lot of color, where other watercolors will not use as much color. They're very light and airy, but everybody paints differently, which is fine. That's a good thing.
I'm still kind of getting back in the groove of like timing with stuff too. So I'm like, oh,
there's a learning curve on that, on the water pigment ratio and the timing. And again, how is it dry? Learning how to anticipate. Those are things that are always the mystery of watercolor.
Yes. Yes.
But you're doing fine.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying it. So
Good.
I'm gonna get going and check on my
Yeah. Now take care of those two boys.
Thank you. Bye, Dale.
All right.
Bye.
I hope they get better soon.
Thank you. I hope so too.
Dale, I tried to lighten up the tree line.
Yeah, that's good. You can add some smaller trees in, lighter than the bigger ones in here, And I made sure that these did not conflict with the heaviness over here.
Yeah,
So these are lighter, a little bit warmer. These are darker, a little bit cooler.
okay. All
And then
right.
I added the final branches in with that small rigger brush of
Yeah.
mine. But you're
Okay.
doing fine.
Thank you. See you next week.
All right, have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.